Where on earth do I begin? Well, when the original DSi XL was announced and launched in Japan way back in 2009, I was excited but also dubious. That's a good word. And I've held off adding any XL-sized systems to my Nintendo collection until now, in January 2018. It kind of seems like a bad idea, even with the 3DS's increased 240p resolution, which, by the way, 240p is less than DVD quality. So having that stretched out to something as big as an iPhone Plus-sized screen, yeah, I mean, it just doesn't sound like a good idea. It also doesn't sound like Nintendo, because throughout their whole history, they've had the mindset where smaller equals better. And, well, let's talk about that. So my very first video game anything was this Game Boy Advanced SP. Actually, it was a silver one, but that got lost and then stolen, so this is the replacement, but still, the Game Boy SP. And with the exception of TVs, effectively the entire industry was trying to make things smaller and thinner and lighter for my whole life. So enter the Game Boy. Released in 1989, this was Nintendo's first truly portable console. They had the Game & Watch stuff beforehand, but that's an entirely different category of portable technology. So yeah, the Game Boy. Certainly not the smallest or lightest device, but it's certainly pocketable and certainly portable. And it sold like gangbusters for the better part of a decade. Then there was that virtual reality experiment back in 1995. And yes, I do have one of these, and yes, it does work, but yeah, that's a different video for another day. That is until 1998, when they released the Game Boy Color. And the graphics were amazing! Well, sort of. It actually had the same 160 by 144 pixel resolution as the original Game Boy, but could display up to 56 colors on the screen at the same time. And it only used 2 AA batteries this time around. And somehow it was thinner and lighter and more powerful. Pretty cool stuff. In 2001, the Game Boy Advanced launched. It was the first major technological upgrade to the Game Boy line. It was basically just as powerful as the Super Nintendo released 10 years previously. But then just 2 short years later, in 2003, perhaps my favorite Nintendo revision ever was released in the form of the Game Boy Advanced SP. Oh, and by the way, throughout all of these many years and decades, the Game Boy has had many competitors, but has never been dethroned as the #1 handheld in the world. And of course, up to this point, all of the Game Boys were backwards compatible with the previous generation of games. So you could play any Game Boy game, Game Boy Color game, or Game Boy Advanced game on the SP. And I say up to this point because in 2005, the Game Boy Micro was released. And this was an extremely compact redesign for the Game Boy system. And unfortunately, because of its size, they had to ditch the hardware that supported backwards compatibility. So this guy could only play Game Boy Advance games, but holy crap! This thing is the size of a pack of gum. Like, what? It's absolute and utter madness, just how small this device is. And the Game Boy Micro would actually be the epitome of downsizing for Nintendo. So it was set in stone. The only thing that could kill Nintendo was Nintendo itself, and in 2004, Nintendo launched the Nintendo DS. It was very clear that the DS was the future. And luckily, they revised this ugly son of a gun only 2 years later in what's probably their best revision ever, aside from the SP, and that's, of course, the DS Lite. I mean, oh my goodness, just look at this thing. It's just absolutely beautiful. And frankly, it's perfect. It had the brightest screen, the longest lasting battery life, the smoothest edges. And I don't say this lightly when I speak for not only myself, but Slade as well, in that we both think that this is the greatest design ever conceived for a portable console. And I need to make it clear that we're not including the Switch on this list because we're only talking about dedicated portables. And for better or worse, this marked the end of an era at Nintendo, and the shift to a design philosophy where smaller did not equal better, but now bigger equals better. Enter the DSi, which at first glance did not seem like it had really changed much from the past generation, but actually had 3 crucial changes, 1 being the camera, 2 being internal storage and downloadable games, thanks to an SD card, and 3, the removal of the Game Boy Advance slot and backwards compatibility. However, there was a much bigger change on the horizon, and just 1 year later is when the DSi XL dropped, and thus beginning Nintendo's extra-large revolution. So the DSi XL was pretty popular, and Nintendo has actually kept that trend going with every single one of their portable systems. And furthermore, they set trends with the industry, with huge companies like Apple, Samsung, and Google all following their example in this extra-large revolution. So again, blowing up a low-resolution display and making it big sounds like a bad idea, but you know what? I'm okay with that. The bigger screens don't take away any of the charm from the games that you already love, and I'd argue that even though a little more pixelated, they actually look just clearer and brighter and better than ever before. Oh, hey Norman, you little cutie. Well, back to editing. So yeah, bigger is better, and now thanks to the release of the Nintendo Switch, Nintendo is only pushing that concept even further to the next generation. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you've made it to the end of the video, and I cannot thank you enough for watching this video. It took upwards of 7 hours to shoot and edit, and whew, that's a lot of time, so thank you.